You could actually spray sulfuric acid in the stratosphere 20 kilometers over our head and use that to stop the planet warming up.
Now, the most amazing thing is that that cloud up there, which was generated by the engine, is just a mixture of hydrogen and oxygen.
Eso es un halo solar falso y esas son capas sobre capas de tóxicos.
Well, instead of doing a rain dance, we physicists are firing trillion-watt lasers into the sky to actually precipitate rain clouds and actually bring down lightning.
Got your ass.
Geoingeniería, la cual es por definición la manipulación de gran escala de procesos ambientales que afectan el clima de la Tierra, en un intento de contrarrestar los efectos del calentamiento global. Unos pocos decidieron que la mejor manera de evitar el calentamiento no era cambiando fuentes de poder, sino prevenir que la radiación solar calentara la Tierra, una técnica llamada manejo de radiación solar, y el proceso imita el efecto de una erupción volcánica.
Geoengineers are proposing spraying 10 to 20 million tons of toxic aluminum and other substances into our sky.
Do this in just a jet in a very simple way, make high quality alumina particles just by spraying aluminum vapor out which oxidizes. So it's certainly in principle possible to do that.
Since we released What in the World Are They Spraying, hundreds of people from around the world have began taking rain tests. What they're finding is what many are calling the chemtrail geoengineering footprint of aluminum, barium, and strontium.
IEA es la supuesta solución potencial del calentamiento global, de acuerdo con sus propulsores. En su explicación más simple, este noticiero estadounidense que se presentó en 1980, hace 40 años, discute cómo el cubrimiento de nubes hechas por jets estaba ayudando a prevenir el calor de la radiación solar.
Wherever you see the jet chemtrails go over, you're going to get aluminum, barium, strontium coming down on you.
Why would we not believe it's happening when what we see in the sky matches exactly the expressed goal of numerous geoengineering patents, about 160 or more? Why would we not believe this is happening when every element showing up in the rain tests are the primary elements named in those geoengineering patents? Why would we not believe this is happening when we have escalating levels in very short time frames, as short as 5 years? We see rain levels of aluminum, for example, escalating as much as 50,000%. California air quality studies do not show these metals migrating from China. And it's of recent origin, so this bombardment of heavy metals that's raining down on us is coming from somewhere.
El científico geoingeniero más reconocido en los Estados Unidos, David Keith, fue al show de Stephen Colbert para promover su libro Un caso de ingeniería climática.
You could actually spray sulfuric acid in the stratosphere 20 kilometers over our head and use that to stop the planet warming up. And ugly tech fix.
You can spray something into the atmosphere to change.
Spray pollution into the atmosphere to stop it warming.
How do you do this?
You'd start with a fleet of modified business jets and say 20,000 tons of sulfuric acid into the stratosphere every year. And each year you have to put a little more. And this doesn't, in the long run, mean that you can forget about cutting emissions. We will need to rein in.
No, we'll get to it eventually.
Estamos viendo aviones dejar estelas a alturas demasiado bajas, con humedad ambiente demasiado baja como para que dejen estelas de condensación. Y sin embargo, estamos viendo estelas que se extienden de un horizonte al otro.
We put 50 million tons of sulfuric acid in the air now as pollution, and it kills 1 million people a year worldwide.
Okay, but it'll be better if we put more in.
We're talking about 1% of that.
1% more, we're just killing 10,000 more people.
You can do math.
What happens to the sulfuric acid after it's sprayed? Does it just stay up there?
No, it rains down, but it's a tiny addition of what we're already doing.
Is there any possible way this could come back to bite us in the end?
It actually turns out to be an old idea. This was known since President Johnson.
You ever look at those planes up there? They have contrails behind them. Maybe all those planes with the contrails, maybe they're actually spraying chemicals into the atmosphere right now and Uncle Sam isn't telling us.
¿Ve los colorines que tiene? Eso es una estela de un avión. Mira. ¿No veis que es una estela?
The very distribution process is being employed in the aerosol campaign, manipulating the weather, crops, taking over the food production or controlling the food production, The military applications, the process evolved when they realized in the 1800s that you can put things into the environment that will influence the uptake of moisture and where it drops out of the atmosphere again.
Y las vagas definiciones de Wikipedia en cuanto a la ingeniería climática te puede llevar a creer que es tecnología nueva. De hecho, la primera patente en crear lluvia fue registrada hace más de 100 años, en 1891, así como la siembra de nubes en 1947, el cual es el proceso que los climatólogos usan para crear lluvia.
Don't worry if you can't hear what I'm saying. I couldn't even hear myself. This is the loudest sound you could possibly conceive. And, as it turns out, the cleanest. Now, the most amazing thing is that cloud up there, which was generated by the engine, is just a mixture of hydrogen and oxygen. It's water vapor. And in about an hour's time, someone in Mississippi is going to get wet washing. It will actually rain. I told you! It's raining! That's unbelievable! Oh, NASA's playing God! It's making its own weather!
La tecnología IEA fue añadida, sin embargo, en aviones comerciales en años recientes, y ahora prevalece más que nunca en el cielo. Los patentes de dispersión pueden encontrarse aquí. Las boquillas se ven así.
And the trails were an absolute necessary ingredient for them to achieve their weather modification goals. So we're finding the aerosols, the metal particulates, all of those can be used and leveraged to create weather events that are several standard deviations or outside what would be typically normal.
40 aviones, por Dios, 40 aviones militares volando encima del cielo de Madrid, que está cerrado al tráfico aéreo desde el 11 de septiembre. ¿Eh? ¿Eso es lo que hacéis? ¿No os da vergüenza o qué?
La puta madre que parió. Oh.
Las avionetas que fumigan en la frontera ni siquiera son colombianas, son de Dyncorp, una empresa de los Estados Unidos, porque es financiado por los Estados Unidos. Fumigan y para dar la vuelta se meten a nuestro territorio y siguen fumigando. Pregúntale a la gente que viene y sucumbía.
You want to be able to manipulate the weather. One of the things we know about the materials that are being used in the aerosols, we've seen everything from aluminum oxide, barium salts, strontium, copper sulfate, potassium iodide, a number of different kinds of things, each of which have different levels of reactivity with the moisture in the air.
Eso es un halo solar falso y eso son capas sobre capas de tóxicos. Allí viene otro puto avión calcando la trazada y eso no es el motor de los aviones, pedazo de hijos de puta. A ver si os informáis de los pocos informes toxicológicos que hay quien ha tenido cojones de hacer y veis cómo todos los metales pesados y demás compuestos químicos superan en miles de veces lo permitido por un ser humano.
And so they started looking at making it enhancing snow, enhancing rain. They started looking at hurricane control. There was a whole bunch of projects in the 40s that started. One was Project Storm Fury, which turned into a disaster when they tried to modify a hurricane. One of the things that geoengineering is about when you're environmentally doing something with the atmosphere is that you can be engaged in weather modification.
Well, instead of doing a rain dance, we physicists are firing trillion-watt lasers into the sky to actually precipitate rain clouds and actually bring down lightning bolts.
HAARP uses 1 billion watts, beamed straight into the ionosphere for experiment.
Picture holding your microwave oven in your hands with the door open. Then you can move it around and send those microwaves different directions. And for these applications where I wanted precise control of where the power was, I felt that was the best type of antenna to use. And that is the kind HAARP has built.
Recordemos que la estación HAARP es la productora de electromagnetismo más grande y poderosa del mundo. Podría causar explosiones de proporciones nucleares sin dejar radiación en el área. Es así como lo asegura la doctora Elizabeth Rusher. El proyecto HAARP no ha sido revelado por completo aún, pero de lo que sí está segura la catedrática de la Universidad de California es que causa severas inestabilidades en el flujo de electrones alrededor de todo el mundo, que podrían terminar por producir daños irreversibles y efectos que la raza humana no podría resistir.
La narrativa común dice que estos transmisores NexRad apenas leen el clima, pero radares procedentes de instalaciones de clima demuestran lo contrario. Revelan cómo realmente transmiten energía de microondas. Cuando se emplean dichos métodos, puedes ver pruebas de una tecnología en un radio perfectamente circular en estas pantallas radiales sin modificar. Por lo tanto, estas locaciones dirigen frecuencias de radiación de alto poder, las cuales envían las nanopartículas de metal, aluminio, bario, entre otros, como dijo Keith. Esto hace que las masas de aire se carguen electromagnéticamente, causando una reacción eléctrica en cadena que calienta dramáticamente la biosfera hasta 10.000 grados, haciendo que los vientos giren con gran velocidad según el en el que esté.
Now we're learning that scientists and researchers are looking at how to change the weather on purpose. That's right. Lasers now could one day manipulate rain and lightning. CBS This Morning contributor Michio Kaku is a physics professor at City College of New York. Professor, I mean, lasers really to change the weather?
That's right. Well, as Mark Twain once famously said, everyone complains about the weather, but no one ever does anything about it. Well, instead of doing a rain dance, we physicists are firing trillion-watt lasers into the sky to actually precipitate rain clouds and actually bring down lightning bolts.
HAARP uses 1 billion watts, beamed straight into the ionosphere for experiments. Picture these strings on the piano as layers of the earth. Each one has its own frequency. What we used to do is beam radio waves into the ground, and it would vibrate any strings that were present in the ground. We might get a sound back like, and we'd say, that's natural gas. We might get a sound back like, and we say that's crude oil. We were able to identify each frequency. We accomplished this with just 30 watts of radio power. If you do this with 1 billion watts, the vibrations are so violent that the entire piano would shake. In fact, the whole house would shake. In fact, the vibrations could be so severe underground that could even cause an earthquake.
HAARP can create some of the effects that the sun creates that are similar to the aurora borealis. HAARP can paint designs in the sky, if you will. You know, it can take the beam and move it in any pattern that the scientist who's doing an experiment might want to do.
Last year, I confronted Heizo Takenaka, the former Japanese finance minister, over why he handed over control of the Japanese financial system to a group of American and European oligarchs. He and his envoy told me that it was because Japan had been threatened by an earthquake machine. I did not believe it at the time. However, when I started exposing some of their doings, I was told by the Japanese security police that because of what I had said on places like Rents.com, that Niigata City was going to be hit by an earthquake. 2 days later, Japan's largest nuclear reactor was the exact epicenter of 2 earthquakes, both 6.8 in magnitude. That was too much of a coincidence for me. So I started doing research and found out about HAARP, H-A-A-R-P. And I realized that they really did know how to make earthquakes. And they do it by shooting a 1 billion watt microwave into the ionosphere, which is the part of the atmosphere that has a lot of energy in it. That pushes the ionosphere up into outer space, and then it rebounds. And the way it rebounds can cause earthquakes.
Spanish newspaper ABC quotes Chavez as saying that the U.S. Navy launched a weapon capable of inducing a powerful earthquake off the shore of Haiti. He adds that this time it was only a drill, and the final target is destroying and taking over Iran. The existence of a tectonic weapon has never been proved, but its use is often suspected.
La IEA que sucede sobre nosotros está siendo etiquetada como conspiración para desechar lo que tus sentidos están mostrando.